Yes, you heard me right. Airtime is the most overrated force on a roller coaster. But wait, before you click off the video, let me explain. Airtime is my favorite force.
But wait, you said Airtime was overrated. How could it be your favorite force if it is overrated? Unsubscribing.
Please don't unsubscribe. In fact, most of you are not subscribed, so be sure to subscribe and like the video. It really helps a small channel like us grow. But back to the question. Airtime is my favorite force by a long shot, but that doesn't mean it is not overrated. Most of you will probably are still confused, but stick to the end to find out. It will all make sense, but first, we need to go back to the 1980s. In this time, inversions, for lack of a better term, were popping off. After the invention of the modern vertical loop, corkscrew, batwing, and more, companies like Aerodynamics and Vekoma started to mass produce these basic corkscrew models and start to produce larger custom models. At the time of this craze, coaster enthusiasts were inversions. Other forces like airtime and laterals existed, but were mostly irrelevant. This led to the creation of Viper at Six Flags Darien Lake, Vortex at Kings Island, RIP, and Shockwave at Six Flags Great America, also RIP. These inversions were quite generic, some may say uninspired. Look at these two vertical loops. They are exactly the same, and that applies to most of the inversions. Aerodynamics literally used the same profiling for every inversion they made, which made some inversions more intense than others, but come on, they are nearly the same in force. However, they were perfect for the time, so they kept building it. Parks kept saying and created hundreds of inversions. Clearly, the 1980s was a time of inversions. If we then move to the 1990s, will inversions still rule supreme? No, of course not. Every single time a line like this is read in a script, it is always no. The 1990s were a decade of intensity. B&M ruled this era with their intense multi-loopers. Rides like Kumba, Dragon Con, and Montu all offered an extreme ride with intense positive Gs and whip. These rides are classics and have insane elements matched by few coasters. Look at Kumba's vertical loop and Zero G roll. Look at the Cobra roll and Alpengeist. When is the last time you saw an inversion taken at that speed with that intensity? Okay, sure, but my point still stands. Even the older manufacturers like Aero and Vekoma were also in the intensity craze with Tennessee Tornado, Canyon Blasters, and the Vekoma SLCs. You heard me right, the Vekoma SLCs. If you ignore the terrible rattle and restraints, you get an intense ride experience with plenty of foot choppers. Yes, this generation is loaded with multi-loopers, but the intensity is the focus, not the inversions. If you thought the 80s inversions were uninspired, well, B&M said, why don't we use the same inversions in the same order on all of our coasters? Vekoma joined in and won up B&M by making the same layout over 30 times.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
No, the intensity was where the hype was. Of course, even now, there were coasters that focus on airtime. Magnum, Shivering Timbers, and Raven all focused on that beautiful force of airtime. But then the 2000s hit, and that is where everything changed. A new force had arrived, Millennium Force. Wow, I wrote that. This world's second Giga coaster because Tower of Two did it first, and was still taller. Anyways, this blew everyone away. Intensity, airtime inversions, none of it mattered. This was the generation of records. Of course, rides still had intensity, airtime, and inversions, but parks were not focused on the strength of the forces, but rather the stats. Nearly every record for coasters was broken, full circuit height, 4 separate times with Millennium Force, Steel Dragon 2000, Top Thrill Dragster, please reopen, and King Ka. Speed, also 4 times with Dodonpa, Top Thrill Dragster, King Ka, and Formula Rosa. Even more niche records like drop angles were broken multiple times. But in the midst of the coaster war, Maverick was created. It proved that the best ride was not one of the tallest or the fastest, but the one with the best elements and forces. This caused the coaster wars to decline until its end with Formula Rosa in 2010. You would think that the next decade will be filled with coasters that are a combination of all the forces for a balance, and you would be right. A small company called Rocky Mountain Construction decided in 2011 it would be a good idea to convert an old wooden coaster into a steel hybrid. That could never work. Oh, people love it. Well, there will not be any more.
Say hello to my little friend!
Yeah, RMC is popular, so popular that every single manufacturer is copying them in some way, even to this day. So what does RMC offer? Well, they're fast-paced with rapid transitions, no positive Gs, and great inversions, but they mainly focus on airtime. That beautiful word is why we love them and what we expect from every other manufacturer because of them. Because we all love RMC so much and airtime, B&M, Intamin, Vekoma, Gerstlauer, Premier, and Mach have all been heavily inspired by RMC, and that includes the abundance of airtime. However, going back to the original question of is airtime overrated, I would argue that airtime has become oversaturated. Now hold on, just because something is oversaturated doesn't mean it's bad. Twisted Colossus is my current favorite coaster, but come on, let's look at the coasters from RMC that have a unique feel to them. There is Iron Gwazi and Jadra for their actual positive Gs. Goliath and Outlaw Run feel like each element stands on its own instead of blend together like other RMCs, and the original Raptors had the most insane pacing of any ride. At least 15 other coasters that feel nearly the same, and the ones we excluded are not very different. They all have rapid transitions that blend each airtime moment together while using inversions to break up these moments. Some are more drawn out than others, some are a bit stronger and more refined, but in general, RMC coasters can be clumped together as a similar ride experience, airtime machines. Quick note, I have not experienced most of these coasters. In fact, as of the time I am recording, I've only experienced one of these, but reviews of these coasters more or less say the same thing about all of them. Now, is that a bad thing? No, of course not. These rides are world-class and some of the most highly ranked roller coasters in the world. However, no one can do the same thing for over 10 years and not have that thing become stale. Some people have even criticized Steel Vengeance for being too similar to smaller RMCs and barely having any other force besides airtime. Now, Steel Vengeance is an amazing coaster, but I think this and other RMCs are just too similar to each other, even if they are amazing. Other companies like Intamin and Mach, I think, have caught onto the idea that airtime is just not enough anymore. Coasters like Velocicoaster and Ride to Happiness put their own unique spin on the RMC model, and even RMC has done that with coasters like Iron Gwazi to stay relevant. Also, most parks, at least in the US, already have an RMC or some other ejector airtime machine. The market for just airtime, aka the stereotypical RMC, I can imagine will decrease in the coming years because most parks have already gotten one or are looking to the next big trend. The same thing has happened with B&M inverts, from 29 sales in the 90s and 2000s to only 3 in the 2010s. The model just died not from being unpopular, but from the fact that everyone had one if they've not had an SLC. The golden age of airtime is starting to die, and that is completely normal. As I already said, roller coaster trends usually last a decade. The ejector airtime craze started 10 years ago, and its days are numbered. But RC Town, if you're so sure airtime will be replaced, why is RMC and other manufacturers still producing airtime machines at nearly the same rate? That's the thing. They are. But they are not producing just airtime like before. Now there's laterals, positive Gs, whippy inversions, hang time, and so much more than just the element airtime. That is what I think the future of this industry is, a combination of all these forces in different magnitudes. The next golden age, I predict, will be an age of balance. Who am I kidding? The future will be Skywars with my luck. Also, I never said airtime will be replaced. Just because a golden age is over for something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Right now, there's just too much airtime being built, and that airtime is not unique enough. Airtime is just a single force, up. There are different intensities of that force, but airtime by itself in a single direction cannot produce anything other than that sensation. For those of you who are not convinced, let me give this analogy. You can eat a single piece of steak and feel great. However, if you eat too much of that steak, it will become bland and be less appealing. That is what is happening with airtime. To sum everything up, airtime is not overrated because it's a bad force, it is overrated because it is trendy. And when something is trendy, it will inevitably lead to oversaturation, which has led to airtime becoming stale and overrated. Thank you for watching the video. If you are angered, please leave your comment detailing your thoughts and post this video on r/rollercoasterjerk. Please remember to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.